MSG, monosodium glutamate. I'm a huge fan of it. I have a load of recipes where I use MSG as a flavor enhancer. But every time I use MSG, I get a ton of comments.
Did he just say to use MSG in that recipe? That's poison! I'm gonna tell him.
So I decided I had to make a video on how to use MSG and why you should. But first, what exactly is MSG? According to MSGfacts.com, monosodium glutamate is the sodium salt of glutamic acid. It's one of the most abundant amino acids in our diet. It has been used for more than 100 years to balance and enhance the savory flavor in foods. The glutamate that's found in MSG and the glutamate that is naturally occurring is the exact same thing, and our bodies treat it exactly the same way. Humans consume about 10 to 20 grams of glutamate per day, and only 10% of that comes from the additive or the seasoning. And it's naturally found in a list of foods. Everything from cow's milk, human's milk, chicken, cured ham, pork, fish, shrimp, grape juice, scallops, walnuts. Green tea has glutamate in it. Corn, potatoes, broccoli, green peas, tomatoes, mushrooms, tons of cheeses, soy sauce. It's in everything, naturally. Now, there's actually two forms of glutamate. There's bound glutamate and free glutamate. Free glutamate is the only thing that enhances flavor, and everything that I just listed on that list for naturally occurring glutamate, those are all free glutamate sources. So one common misconception is that monosodium glutamate will increase the saltiness level of foods. It actually increases the savoriness level of foods. But the saltiness level actually gets lowered a little bit. While it does increase the flavor, the sodium level, 1 teaspoon of table salt contains around 2,400 milligrams of sodium, while 1 teaspoon of MSG contains around 700 milligrams of sodium. Now, another fun fact that a lot of people seem to misunderstand is they think that MSG is added to make bad food taste good. But in fact, MSG will only enhance flavor of good quality food. If you add MSG to bad quality food, it probably is not gonna make it taste any better. It's probably gonna make it taste worse, honestly. So I'll be honest, the science is pretty conclusive. Monosodium glutamate was found by the Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organizations and the World Health Organization. They reviewed over 200 scientific reports and evaluated glutamate as having no specified acceptable daily intake, which means that it is in the category of the safest of food additives. So the myth that MSG is bad started in 1968 after one person ate at a Chinese restaurant and said that he had numbness, weakness, heart palpitations, and attributed it to MSG. He wrote this letter to the New England Journal of Medicine, and it was published. Now in the letter, he also said that it was possible that these weren't from MSG, and that started the myth that is known in America as the Chinese restaurant syndrome. It took until 1995 for an independent scientific panel to do research into this and find that yes, that there could be some mild symptoms of headache involved from eating too much MSG, but that they really even couldn't contribute it directly to MSG. There's no scientific study that proves that MSG does anything. There's more information that too much wine gives you a headache than there is that too much MSG does. People were afraid of MSG for so long that labels were added to foods to show that they didn't include MSG. But there's no reason to be afraid of it. It's naturally made. It's made in a very similar process to yogurt, wine, vinegar. It's just a fermented starch or sugar cane. Sometimes it's even like a fermented beetroot. Originally, MSG was extracted from seaweed broth, but companies found that it's much easier to ferment these sugar canes or beetroots, and it yields a better, cleaner product. So now that you know a bunch of information about MSG that you might not have known before, let's add some MSG to food and see if it makes it taste better. So to cook with MSG, you have to know its flavor. MSG by itself is essentially flavorless, but when added to foods, it increases the level of umami. Umami is the 5th basic taste, along with sweet, sour, bitter, and saltiness. Umami takes on a savory flavor, what's commonly found in broths and meats. Umami was first identified as a flavor in 1908 by a professor at the Tokyo Imperial University. He found that glutamate was responsible for the savory or the distinct taste in kombu dashi-based broths. Umami, or the essence of umami, can be found and sold as MSG, as Ajinomoto. I don't know if I pronounced that right, let me know. Ajinomoto. Ajinomoto is a company that makes a bunch of different things, but their first product and their main branded product was MSG. Now you can find these little white crystals, Ajinomoto, at any Asian market. It should be pretty easy to come by, but if you can't find Ajinomoto, if you're not near an Asian market, you can always pick up accent seasoning. I found this just at my regular grocery store in the spice aisle. Both of them, Accent and the Ajinomoto, are both pure monosodium glutamate. Now, Ajinomoto, Accent, or MSG can be used on any dish where a savory element is required. You can replace it anywhere where you find salt, but it won't work really well on sweets. It's not gonna really elevate anything sweet. So it is recommended to only be used on any vegetables, any meats, or any soup stocks that you're gonna use. But you can also use it to season French fries, chips, popcorns, things like that. So today we're gonna make 3 different things. We're gonna upgrade them with Ajinomoto, and I'm actually gonna do a taste test with a very plain version, just using salt, and a Ajinomoto version using MSG, and have my buddy taste it and see which one he thinks is better. I bet you he's gonna be able to guess it. Now, when cooking with MSG, a half of a teaspoon is all you need when you're making a dish for 4 to 6 servings of food. And you can remove most of, or all, of the salt when you're using this. Less sodium. So one of my favorite things to upgrade with MSG is popcorn. And adding just a touch of MSG to it will really upgrade the flavor. Let's go ahead and make 2 batches of popcorn. Follow the instructions on the popcorn you buy to make your homemade popcorn. All I do is add a little bit of oil to the bottom of the pan. I turn on the heat, add a single kernel until it pops. There was the pop, that means it's ready to go. Let's add our popcorn. And this is it, this is all you do. So just to make sure that we have an equal amount of seasonings for the test. So here is a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper with a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And this is gonna be the salt version, so it is gonna get 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. That's how much MSG it's gonna get in the next version. Then we're just gonna add it to our popcorn. Now let's add this version to a big bowl. Like I said, for this whole thing, we're just adding 1/8 of a teaspoon of MSG. So up next, let's make a simple tomato sauce. Now, tomatoes are already very rich in umami. They're very, very rich in glutamate. All we're doing is just slightly increasing the glutamate, which is really going to increase that savory flavor inside the tomato sauce. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make 1 pan of sauce, simmer it most of the way through, and then split it into 2. 1/2 is gonna get seasoned with salt and pepper. The other half is gonna get seasoned with MSG. All we need is a can of San Marzano tomatoes. I'm gonna use just a simple basil seasoning and a few cloves of garlic. I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of pure olive oil, not extra virgin. Drop that on a low heat, and then I'm going to crush up this garlic pretty fine. So just drop the garlic into the oil. I like a chunky tomato sauce. Sauce is all preference. We're just gonna add our tomatoes to the oil. And then stir them up and cook them down over a medium heat. They'll kind of break up on their own, and that is a simple sauce. I'm gonna add just a little bit of the basil seasoning. Let's throw a lid on this and let this cook for a while. The longer you cook it down, the better it's gonna taste. Okay, so the sauce has been simmering for quite a while. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get the weight of the sauce so that way I can evenly distribute it. We're at 580 grams of sauce. So we need 290 grams in each container. Okay, so in the rimmed container, I'm gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And in the unrimmed container, I'm gonna add 1/8 of a teaspoon of MSG. Let's tiny whisk this in. I'm excited because this MSG sauce is going to be delicious. And the last thing that we're gonna upgrade with MSG and test out is we're gonna roast some vegetables. I'm gonna roast some carrots and broccoli. Now the carrots I've already cleaned, so they're good to go. The broccoli, I'm just gonna chop off the stem, chop into individual broccoli florets. And the only thing that we're gonna do to them is give them a nice hefty drizzle of olive oil. Then I have my oven preheated for 400 degrees. We're gonna drop them in the oven and let them go until they're fully roasted. Just pay attention to them. Once we see that they look nice and colored after a few minutes, we're gonna flip them over. Okay, the carrots and the broccoli are done. Now the broccoli got decimated, that's my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I should have pulled these off a little bit earlier. It's still fine. Now I'm gonna toss just a pinch of parsley. This is dried Italian parsley. Then we're gonna split these guys up. Silver is gonna get a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. White is going to get 1/8 of a teaspoon of the Ajinomoto. Let's give both of these a toss. Okay, I have my buddy Andy here. He's gonna taste test these to be a blind, secondary opinion. He's gonna tell me which ones he thinks are better out of all of these dishes. So Andy, come on, let's help me out. First thing that we're gonna do is the popcorn. Sorry, the popcorn's cold. Okay, try that one. You want water in between it?
Yeah. Rinse the palate. This one by far.
That one, by far?
By far.
Okay. Next up is roasted veggies. Here's your fork. Now these are just roasted veggies. There's nothing really on them besides parsley and that's it, parsley.
This one.
That one?
Yep, the white one.
Okay. Now this is just a really simple marinara made with canned fresh San Marzano tomatoes. Do you like the sauce?
I do, it's good.
I mean, it is good sauce, right? Yeah. It's been sitting for a little bit, but it's good sauce.
That one.
Really?
Yep, by far.
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
So there it is. This test was pretty conclusive. My buddy Andy was able to pick 3 out of 3 times what was his favorite dish, and 3 out of 3 times it was the MSG dish. Now, for the most part, I understand that everybody knows that MSG is going to make things taste good, but I hope with all of the information that I provided you today that you're gonna do your own research and your own discovery to find that you can use MSG at home and not be fearful of it. Now, this video is definitely not saying that you don't have any issues with MSG, but most likely the issues that you are suffering comes from something else. I would talk to a doctor before coming up with your own assumptions. I was really glad that I got to make this video. I've wanted to make an MSG video for a long time, ever since I started using it in my recipes, and ever since I started getting a lot of the hate comments for using it. All the people that you see listed over here on the side, they're the members of the Sauce Squad. You can join the Sauce Squad over at patreon.com/SauceStache and get your name right here on the list. And if you like this video about MSG, make sure you click the subscribe button and click this video right here. This is gonna be another one of my, another video from me. Thanks.